back to another episode of the Whisky Diaries. My name is Martin Lang and we're here at Death and Taxes, and today we're going to talk about a very, very good whiskey, the Mortlach. In this particular case, the Mortlach 21-year-old special release 2020. This is a cask strength double maturation whiskey. But before we go into the whiskey itself, let's talk about a little bit of the distillery itself, because it has a very rich history and it has a lot of interesting facts about the distillery itself. The distillery claims to be the first legal distillery in Dufftown, created in 1823, just after they did the Excise Act in Scotland, allowing distilleries to produce whiskey. Now, another interesting fact is that William Grant, the creator and founder of Glenfiddich, worked at Mortlach for 20 years before they opened in 1887 the Glenfiddich distillery. So just off the bat, it has a great history. The other interesting really facts as well, a few other interesting facts, is that before it got taken over by Johnny Walker in the early 1900s, during the 1800s, it was one of the only distilleries in Dufftown. And Dufftown at that time was basically unknown, so it was hard to get to. Roads were barely there, so all the barrels used to be taken by mule, and they had a lot of private clients. They're basically one of the distilleries. When Mr. Cowie took it over in the late 1800s, he actually said that Mortlach has probably one of the biggest private client base of any distillery in Scotland. At that time, they were not only producing whiskey for the locals and for like private kings and queens, they were actually shipping to India, America, and even Australia at the time, which is crazy because it's not like, you know what I mean. Mortlach was, until 5 or 6 years ago, was only known for a whiskey that was primarily given to the Johnny Walker blends. Until lately, like the name, now you're starting to see more and more bottles, but until like 10 years ago, it basically unknown. So anyway, regardless of that, so the whiskey is considered one of the meatiest and full body whiskies from Dufftown. The reason why they do this apparently is something that they called a proprietary method that is called the 2.81 Distilled Times of the whiskey itself. So what is 2.81? Is what I could find and what I got told is that basically they have six stills. That's not very different to many distilleries, but the different part is that each pot still is actually different to the other one. So they create a spirit from each different stills and then they blend them all together. So they have a very complex, not very complex, but they go back and forth and all that stuff. But one of the interesting parts about the back and forth is that one of the stills, so they have 3 spirit stills and 3 wash stills. They mix the spirit from a spirit still with a wash still, which is I never heard before. And basically what this does, it kind of like produce like a milky type of spirit that then they distill again, and so on and so on. So they don't want to say that it's 3 times distilled because, and this is correct, most of the people, when you tell someone that a spirit is 3 times distilled, they think that it's a more like lighter spirit, kind of like the Irish and so on. But this one, they want to say that it's almost a 3, but it's not 3 per se. So it's 2.81, and it's a proprietary method from Mortlach, and they've been doing this since 1898. And it was produced by the son of Mr. Cowie. His name was Alexander Cowie, and they've been using it since. And this apparently produces a very, what they say, Mortlach is like a powerful, meaty and commanding malt. The 21-year-old 2020 release, the one that we're going to be talking about now, it's a natural cask strength, bottled at 56.9% ABV. Comes in a beautiful bottle with, as you can see, with a beautiful deer. And then the bottle is the classic square bottles, which some people like, some people don't. I personally am indifferent to it. I like the more traditional style bottles of whiskey, but it is a commanding bottle. You can definitely recognize it in any back bar. Now the double maturation or triple maturation that they've done is they start with American oak, and then they finish it in Pedro Ximénez cask and Oloroso casks. We talked in the videos where Pedro Ximénez and Pedro Ximénez and Oloroso sherry is. It comes from basically Spain. What they do is they grab the barrels and they season it with the sherry. Pedro Ximénez is a really sweet style of sherry, really dark and viscous. And then Oloroso is kind of like a one step before that. It's kind of like more oxidized type of sherry. And both of them, they add like spiciness and sweetness to the whiskey itself. But the interesting fact is that when the barrels are seasoned and you put the sherry in them, the sherry that sherry gets actually chucked away. There's not sherry for consumption. Back in the day when this first started, yes, it was the way that they carried all the way to the UK. But nowadays it's just purely for seasoning. So as I said, finished in Pedro Ximénez and Oloroso, 56.9. So it has a very little bit of punch. But if you ever had Mortlach, you're expecting like that heavy style of whiskey. That is actually delicious, because as most of you, like Dufftown and the Highlands are more famous for producing more like lighter style of whiskey, like Glenfiddich and Glengoyne, and think about Glenmorangie and so on and so on. So this one is supposed to be a little bit more heavy, like a little bit more mid-palate, stronger. And straight off the bat, like you get that definitely sherry, but you get the vanilla and the sweetness from American oak as well. At 21 years old, the color of the bottle actually looks quite light. Obviously there's a lot of darker whiskies at this age, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Oof, yeah, it's definitely a punch. You can definitely taste the 56% ABV. I would recommend a little bit of water maybe. It's not that bad that you can't drink it by itself, but definitely at a lower temperature as well. Like we're here in Queensland, so the temperature here is like 30 degrees. So this whiskey will go really well in a colder climate like Scotland, or in a cold or in winter as well. Definitely needs a little bit of drop in temperature, but delicious whiskey nonetheless. You can definitely taste the spiciness and the sweetness from the Pedro Ximénez. That little tannins from the Oloroso as well. Great whiskey all round. And is apparently is bottle. This is out of 7,000 bottles. So this is bottle 6,255 out of 7,644 bottles. So even though it seems like a lot of bottles, it's pretty limited as well. It will go pretty quick. So anyway, hopefully you enjoy the video. Please let us know if you have any requests, or if you like any whiskey in particular. Thank you very much, and Slanjaba.